Welcome into LCPioneers.com Live, presented by PiosStream, as we are with you 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday, starting at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook Live, and available to watch on demand both on our YouTube page, youtube.com/LCPios, as well as inside the fan zone. Just go to LCPioneers.com and click on the fan zone, look for LCPioneers.com Live, keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community. Hi everyone, I am Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers based out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of the Northwest Conference, NCAA Division III, the largest division of the NCAA, with 19 intercollegiate athletic programs competing in the Northwest Conference, a 9-team conference comprised of different institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and a chance for our student athletes to have a rigorous liberal arts education with overseas study as we kind of shift into 2021-22. Optimistic that as soon as possible we'll have our student athletes and students alike able to travel the world and get that global experience that we like on the heels of what has been an odd year, certainly, with the pandemic. We have two guests today. Coming up later in the show, we'll introduce you to the new head coach of Lewis and Clark women's basketball. We'll talk to Dorris, and just in a few minutes we'll talk to Lewis and Clark rising senior Natalie Kowal, who is a member of the women's tennis team, and excited to get perspective of what the last year was like for the tennis program. Certainly obstacles upon obstacles when you look at the fact that the tennis dome was gone for the spring of 2021, the first outdoor match for Lewis and Clark tennis since the mid-90s. We'll get some perspective on what the last year was like, plus things that Natalie's looking forward to in the upcoming year as well. We invite you to get connected with the show, and you can do so by visiting us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle on both of those platforms is LC Pioneers. You can keep connected with us as well as on Facebook, and then go to our website too, lcpioneers.com. As I mentioned, that is where you can find all of our past shows, in addition to a playlist that has every show dating back to March of 2020 when we started doing the show, and we are proceeding forward with fall 2021, including having the fall schedules released. You can see all of the schedules for football, volleyball, women's soccer, and cross country right now at lcpioneers.com, but we are planning to keep the show going during the course of 2021 as well, Tuesday and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. All right, let's bring in our guests. We are talking to rising senior Natalie Kowal, joining us on lcpioneers.com Live. Natalie, it is good to catch up with you. A couple of days ago, my understanding, you said it was your birthday, correct?
It was 2 days ago.
Happy birthday. I hope your summer is off to a great start, and that's kind of a good place to start this interview, is give us an idea of what your summer has been like so far, some things that you're looking forward to doing over the course of the next couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. So during this last semester, I began a job as a preschool assistant teacher. And as soon as school ended, I continued to work with them until the end of May when I moved out of my apartment off campus and came to my mom's house in Boulder, Colorado. And from there, we went on a trip to South Africa to see my stepdad's family. And I had an amazing time. My first ever safari, saw lions 3 feet away from me. It was amazing. And then now I'm back here and I have a job as a nanny and at a preschool, also as an assistant teacher.
Wow, it sounds like the summer's been off to quite a hot start for you, which is really nice to hear because it is good to hear that opportunities are there for everybody to kind of get out and get with one another again, because that is something that has been a lot more of a struggle over the course of the pandemic. We certainly wish everyone in your family, everyone that's close to you, happy and healthy, of course. But I am curious, describe what the last year was like from your perspective, a student athlete coming to Lewis and Clark, trying to compete and juggling with all that was 2020, 21. What was the last year like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So this last year, it definitely had some perks and challenges when it came to online studying. It was nice because I lived off campus, so I could take classes from bed. I didn't have to go in person and make sure that yeah, I didn't have to go in person, so that was nice not having to worry about the commute that much. But I did have some in-person classes, which I was lucky to have because eventually online could be really distracting at times. But overall, the year was really good. I think Lewis and Clark did a really great job of making sure that the students were safe and putting out the guidelines that they wanted to make sure that they had they avoided students from becoming sick as much as possible. And it was one of my first times uh, wearing a mask while I was exercising. And even in the fall, I was lucky to still be able to play a good amount of tennis, um, about 3, 4 times a week with the team. So yeah, this school year definitely was challenging outside of it would have been challenging outside of the pandemic, um, as well as inside the pandemic. But it was a good year so far, and I think Lewis and Clark did a good job.
And I think that that's worth mentioning too. Is the challenges that y'all faced. Kudos to you, and I've said this to a lot of the staff members and other parts of the Lewis and Clark College community for taking care of one another. Really, that we before me at LC kind of mentality worked pretty well. I'm curious, when it comes to the team, right? What is it like to be a member of the Lewis and Clark tennis program, more in general, right? What is it like
Yeah.
to have these teammates, these friends that you can rely on over the course of an academic year?
Yeah, I was so grateful, especially this year, to have the team. I think when it comes in general, when it comes to the team, some of our members have mentioned it like a sisterhood, and I can't agree more. It totally feels like we're able to just be as authentic as possible with each other. We are able to understand each other's challenges as well as congratulate each other on academic and athletic successes on the team. I think we all have the mindset of just being as optimistic and as healthy as possible. And I couldn't have been happier to be part of the team, especially during the pandemic, because it really helped me keep a more positive and healthy outlook on this time.
Natalie Kowal, our guest on lcpioneers.com live, rising senior for Lewis and Clark women's tennis. And the origin story is always fun to get from our student athlete guests on the show. And that goes back to the original reason why you chose Lewis and Clark in the first place. What was it about the opportunity to come to Portland, come to this campus and compete for Lewis and Clark that really stood out for you?
Yeah, just like you mentioned earlier in the introduction, that I really enjoyed the liberal arts component. I like how um, I was looking into going into a school that was similar to my high school. It was a smaller environment, a lot of different classes in 5 key areas: languages, history, science. English, and I'm blanking on the other one. I want to say math. Yeah. So I was really happy that I was able to get into a small school like that focuses on different, that has students approach learning very holistically. And the one thing that I really enjoy, regardless of whether I like the class or not, is my communication with the teachers, because I did not want to go to a school where I would be seen as just a number and be, have repetitive lectures, because that was the only way that a teacher could teach to such a massive student. So I'm glad that my classes are smaller and I'm able to be seen as a person by my teachers. And I think that's really helped me academically grow. And I really enjoy how my teachers have been pretty supportive about me being an athlete and just managing my time. So that's one of the biggest components that I like about LC, is just the relationships that I have with teachers.
And when you look at the courses you've taken so far, as we mentioned, you're rising into your senior year, right? Is there a class that you've had that you really have enjoyed and a story behind that? Or is there a class that maybe you're looking forward to as we turn the page into 2021-22? And what's notable about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the most memorable class that I took was Education 205, which was an education class where we would have 3 hours of class time on, I believe it was Tuesday, and then on Thursdays we'd have 3 hours where we would volunteer as teacher assistants at different schools. So I was able to be in a class that had a teacher, Professor Allison Thompson, who really focused on interactive learning and made sure that each student was able to present their thinking, present their beliefs in regards to the readings that we had done. And then on Thursdays, we had the opportunity to be in person in a classroom and understand what it means to be a teacher. And I was a teacher assistant for a kindergarten class, and it was very memorable because you were able to understand each and every kid. There was one kid that had plenty of tantrums, and one time 6 staff members had to come help him out and take him to the office to calm down. But it made me really understand that I really enjoy. I'm looking for something like a personable career, such as being an early childhood education teacher, and I was really grateful to that class to show me, to be able to give me those experiences and make me realize that I want to be in a profession like that.
Natalie Kowal, our guest on lcpioneers.com live. We're talking about the past season that was in 2020-21 and some of the class experiences you had. Let's shift it over now to the academic or to the athletic side of things, right? We mentioned the challenges the pandemic presented, but at the end of the semester, certainly in the spring, y'all had a schedule. You were able to compete, and you had to do this with the tennis dome going away. What was it like when the ice hit Portland and the tennis dome goes away, when you found out that the place that you've called home competitively was gone?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I just remember seeing a picture in our tennis group chat of all these trees, and I was like, wait, what? What is that? I just see a picture. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know why people sent that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, it's the tennis dome. There was a huge ice storm, and all this ice collected on a tree and collapsed onto our tennis dome. So that was a real bummer. And I even had left like a bag in there, and supposedly there's like all this mold that grew on it. So I had to throw that out, and it was just such a bummer. But I think that Jimmy, our head coach, did such a good job of organizing in indoor tennis facilities. First, he was, first he was able to get Vancouver, which was far away, and a lot of girls were definitely annoyed with. But it was really great that we were able to get the Mountain Park Tennis Club indoor courts even if they were early in the morning at 6 or late at night at 8:30. I was just thankful that we were able to play tennis during a pandemic and during a crazy ice storm, or right after a crazy ice storm that we had. So I think Jimmy did a good job. But when it was really sunny in April as well, and the courts were cleaned, all the teams seemed really happy to be out in the sun and trying to shed off our pale winter skin and get tan outside. It was actually a really fun experience to play outside on those courts, especially our match against Pacific Lutheran University in April, which was the first one since the 90s on our outdoor courts.
Yeah, what a unique time, seriously, because I mean that dome has been so critical. Having indoor facilities for tennis
Yes, absolutely.
in the Pacific Northwest is amazing, but then to have that moment unexpectedly. I mean, I remember talking to Coach Chow and assistant coach Rocky Campbell about when's the last time we played a match outside, because I'm trying to look through books and figure that out. Now you're part of history in that respect. One other thing, too, to touch on is just what was the year like? I mean, how did you feel about the success that your team was able to have qualifying for the Northwest Conference tournament? What stood out competitively from this last year?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say what stood out competitively was that because we had so many new members on the team, we were constantly shifting doubles partners. And while there were some matches that I had where I felt like my doubles partner and I didn't necessarily mesh together to compete the best that we could, I was happy that we were able to switch off partners because I was able to see. I was able to play really well with the players on my team and have some great matches, specifically against Willamette University and Pacific Lutheran University, and just the fact that because also one of the things that was a bummer during this year is that we were going to play Whitworth in Washington and fly over there. However, there was someone on the team who had COVID, and it was a very high possibility that the whole team would have COVID. So only 2 of the players from our team decided to play Whitworth, and because of that, Whitworth had a higher position in the conference tournament. They were 3rd out of the 9 teams. Well, we had just came 4th, which was actually a surprise because we thought that it was going to be Pacific University who would go into the conference tournament. So it was a really happy surprise for us to go into the conference tournament at the end. And although we lost in the first round of the conference tournament to Linfield, it was a great experience. I'm so thankful that we had a season this year because so many of the other sports didn't get that opportunity.
Yeah, that Whitworth moment where the Pirates had some of those COVID tests, and you talked about Lewis and Clark going to the meet in Spokane, or the match in Spokane, without as many of our team as we would have liked. Clearly, with COVID concerns that were throughout the course of this entire year, but Whitworth had that positive situation there with their test. I am curious what you're looking forward to now as you move into that senior year. What's some of the exciting things that you see on the horizon for yourself?
I am really excited that I get the chance to study abroad in the fall. I'm going to be studying in Barcelona and through a program called SAA, not through Lewis and Clark. But I was going to go last year, but because of the pandemic, it got postponed. And I'm just glad that I'm still accepted into the program this year. I'm really excited that Lewis and Clark has made sure that everyone is vaccinated this year. I think that the school is just going to it's going to be a way more normalized college experience for students this year because last year vaccines were not as accessible, and the college experience was as great as Lewis and Clark could make it, but I feel like a lot of the freshmen missed out. And the spring semester of my last season in tennis is going to be extremely exciting, and I'm just ready to kick butt and do the best that I can that season. And I'm excited to see all my teammates.
We are excited for you, certainly eager to see what happens with the 2021-22 year, and have fun on the opportunity to travel abroad. Natalie Kowal, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on lcpioneers.com Live today.
Of course. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. That's Natalie Kowal joining us on the show. A fun conversation, and we discussed a lot of what has been a unique challenge for the student athletes at Lewis and Clark, the students in general, and then clearly across higher education. You look at the challenges that the pandemic has made. Certainly applaud the entire staff and faculty at Lewis and Clark, and then of course the students, because by and large Lewis and Clark had two pretty successful semesters with trying to keep each other safe. Natalie talked a little bit about that over the course of the interview, and making sure that the community really came together to take care of one another, and that was really exciting about this last year. I think back to interviews we've had over the course of 2020-21. Jeremy Lowe, who's now the head athletic trainer for Lewis and Clark, talked about some of the precautions and the work that group put in. Certainly Coach Ange, who's one of our last guests on the show, and all the effort that Coach Ange put into making sure that there was weight room availability for student athletes, and trying to make sure that student athletes could train over the course of the year to get ready for what will be a non-pandemic schedule coming up, right? You look at the fall schedules posted at lcpioneers.com. It's a really exciting opportunity to see that Lewis and Clark will play a full schedule of athletics in the fall, and that's in no short way a credit to Director of Physical Education Athletics Mark Petrock and the entire staff at Lewis and Clark to get everyone ready for this moment, and we're super excited to have that happen coming up this fall. And that said, in the winter, the schedule will turn to swimming in both of our basketball programs. That includes the women's basketball program, and Ann Dorris is the new head coach of that program. We'll talk to the new head coach of the program coming up in just a little bit. Please stay tuned. We'll have more coming up on lcpioneers.com Live.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the two students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.
LCPioneers.com Live continues. Thanks for being with us on this Thursday, an opportunity to keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community. Invite you to get involved with the show. You can do so by leaving a comment in our Facebook Live comments, or you can always email us to sports@lclark.edu. Should you have a suggestion for a future guest, or as we put out the guests that we have coming up on the show, you can always leave us an email ahead of time, and we'll ask that question on the show, because a lot of people have been tuning in on demand. You can do so by going to youtube.com/LCPios. And with this upcoming year, we're excited to kind of add on to our YouTube content for the year. Of course, all of our shows available to watch too on demand inside the fan zone at LCPioneers.com. Let's bring in the new head coach of Lewis and Clark women's basketball. We are excited to be joined by Dorris on LCPioneers.com Live. Hello, Coach. How is your Thursday treating you?
Hi there. It's good. It's good. I'm in one of the coffee shops here in Portland and excited to be here.
We are excited to have you joining Lewis and Clark as the next head coach of women's basketball, and that's a great starting off point, right? Let's talk about what attracted you to the opportunity to coach Lewis and Clark women's basketball, and what you're most eager to get started with.
Sure. I mean, Lewis and Clark College, first and foremost, is just a fantastic educational school. Really hands-on, experiential learning, really involved in the community. And that is always something that I'm looking for, just so that I know that any student athlete that goes through the program is going to have an excellent education, excellent opportunities at the end of their 4 years. And then, of course, Pioneers women's basketball, it's got a great history, great tradition of success behind it, set in a great conference. The Northwest Conference is one of the top conferences in the country. Really excited to compete in there. And I've got a phenomenal team, really, senior heavy, got a lot of upperclassmen ready to hit the ground running. They're really excited and eager. And so that always gets me fired up and gets me excited and eager too. So I think it's got a lot of power, a lot of success behind it, and just a very family oriented. And then, of course, when we're set in Portland, Oregon, right? You can't be in many better places than that.
Yeah, you look at that unique opportunity for student athletes who choose to compete at Lewis and Clark, right? Only institution in the Northwest Conference with a population of 500,000 plus. That's a very unique opportunity. And then, of course, the campus located so close to downtown and some of the other places like Nike and OHSU. So I ask you that question because when you look at the Division III landscape, right, there aren't many that are located in a city as big as, say, like a top 25 market like Portland. What do you think that does when it comes to the opportunity to recruit and ask student athletes to compete at Lewis and Clark?
It does a lot. Being set in a city like Portland, sure, its size is one, but also just the character and the community of Portland. There's a lot of opportunities there. It allows our players to get some awesome internships, awesome work opportunities. And then, too, they're able to, in the summertime, they can stay and, work or hang out with their friends and just enjoy the city. And then during the year, they can enjoy that campus that's just, first of all, beautiful, but set and, feels like you're in nature and you're in the heart of the woods and everything. And then 5 minutes down the road, you're in the city. So I think it just gives you a lot of opportunity to enjoy, and also work opportunities, service opportunity, a lot of things along those lines. And as a recruit, I think it's a fun place to visit. So when you're coming to visit campus, you get to wander around the city, wander around Nike, see some other things right in the area. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, Portland's a unique aspect, so many unique aspects, like you just said, all the different things that comes with a population center, but also located in the Pacific Northwest. And I say this about the PNW all the time, right? There is so few opportunities to have an ocean so close, mountains so close, but also population centers, even if you go up north further to Seattle. How much time had you spent in the Pacific Northwest prior, and what is it about this area kind of on the larger scale that makes it a unique location?
So I actually haven't spent a ton of time on the West Coast at all. It's just kind of the last piece of the country for me in my career and my life, to get to spend some time in this area. Of course, of just the beauty out here, and it's an excellent just sports region. A lot of a lot of great sports teams and sports culture. And like you said, you've got, you know, mountains to your right, the ocean to your left, some great cities all around you. So just the area in and of itself, I think, is a great place to be. And I'm excited for that West Coast basketball. It's fun basketball to play. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of get my first taste of what this Northwest and the Pacific Northwest is all about.
And Dorris, our guest on lcpioneers.com live, new head basketball coach for Lewis and Clark women's hoops, and entering your 8th year as a collegiate coach. What was it about the opportunity to just coach in general? What kind of led you toward this profession?
Sure. I mean, I come from a sports family, basketball family, of course, and I've played basketball my entire life. And when I was in college, I played in college as well. And I just think that the lessons that you learn playing sports they're intangible, they're invaluable, in a way that how to work with the team, how to, you know, master a craft, applying strategy, you know, all kinds of intangible skills that you pick up playing sports. And then, of course, it's a family. It really is a family. And so, you know, as I went, it's funny, I was in, I had my master's in English literature, and I was really sitting with, okay, do I want to go professor route with English literature, because I love to teach, and or do I want to, you know, go into college athletics? And I just thought about what, you know, the game of basketball, what my mentors have done for me in my life, and to be able to serve as that role for others and to create that kind of atmosphere for other college students, especially in that, you know, transitional time in their life, I think is really important. And it's an honor to get to do it. I say it all the time, it's my dream job. So I'm thrilled to have my dream job. So
yeah, and we're thrilled to have you too. And this is probably the play-by-play broadcaster in me, because I always like sitting down with basketball coaches and ask for philosophy, and my brain immediately goes to X's and O's. And I do want you to talk about like what the team will look like when it's on the floor, but then just overall in that mentorship realm, right? What is your overall philosophy when it comes to working with student athletes?
Sure. It's really important to me that my core values, growth, unity, and legacy. And for me as a coach, that's something I'm hoping to instill in every student athlete that I'm able to coach. And so wanting to teach them how to grow, how to be the best version of themselves, what learning is like for them, what gets in the way of their learning, whether it's basketball or anything in life, and how to help their teammates be the best versions of themselves and grow with unity. You know, what's your role in the whole? You know, how do you work together and kind of play your part to move that whole forward as much as you can. And then with the goal being legacy, you know, to move that, to progress and see how we can move the program forward, how we can move the college forward. I tell them all the time, it's whatever community you're in, you want it to be better when you leave it. And so it's really important to me just to instill those values. But I've really found, and I've had some phenomenal mentors that have helped me kind of develop my philosophies, but instilling a voice and learning what their voice is and how to use that voice to affect change and make an impact, that's really, really important to me. So whether it's their personal lives or their career, on the court, off the court, just finding that voice and learning how to use it is a really important development from me to them.
And then you described the makeup of this roster that you have coming back in your first year. What's that lend itself to in terms of things that you can implement on the floor? And then certainly just, you know, having all that leadership with the upperclassmen heavy roster, what's that going to be able to do for your team out the bat?
Sure. No, I'm really excited about it. I mean, 8 seniors, that alone, that's a wild card right there. No team can be ready for 8 seniors, I don't think. But no, I'm really excited. I think that experience really helps us. It helps. I know they've done a lot of work on the culture in the last couple of years, especially in this last year, throughout the pandemic and everything, when they couldn't quite get on the court as much. They've really leaned into their relationships and the culture. And so being able to use that experience and that culture to teach the young ones, and to really bring the young ones up as they kind of leave their legacy this year. I'm really excited about that. And I think it kind of helps us be able to hit the ground running when we get going in October.
Purpose of having any coach on is to get to know you a little bit better, and that certainly applies to a brand new head coach. So give us kind of the background. What is your coaching history at the collegiate level? Where are you coming from? Give us kind of more of the resume in that respect.
Sure. I started out my career coaching at my alma mater at Lynchburg College. Now it's the University of Lynchburg. And during that time, we went as a player, we were really just hitting that like semifinal, quarterfinals, and we couldn't quite get that edge. But we learned a lot about building culture. And then as a coach there, I was able to kind of experience what that difference is between, getting stuck in those beginning rounds of the playoffs and kind of near that mid-level of the conference to being able to flip it and go to the top. And in those 3 years, getting to see my alma mater go to a championship game each of those 3 years after never having even stepped on the floor of a championship game, and then much less to get to cut down the nets and then go to the NCAA tournament. A lot of them were my teammates. And so to get to, be a part of that building process as a player and then as a coach to kind of see it through was a really, really special experience for me. And then, of course, seeing my best friends get to cut down a net was really special for me too. And the conference was a different style of play. It was just a little slower, more possession oriented. There were a couple of teams in the conference, Randolph-Macon, for example, who played much faster. But for us, we played a much more slower pace, possession oriented. You're calling the right play at the right time, chess match kind of a game, like you see UVA basketball. And so that was really helpful for me in my, coaching development to understand how that game works and how to play that game and that kind of chess match. And then when after 3 years there, I went to William Smith College, a part of Hobart and William Smith colleges in upstate New York, Western New York. They'd probably get mad at me for saying upstate. But so I got to be in Bills Nation with them. And that was a much different, it's a high academic liberal arts school. And they're competing in just the Liberty League Conference is a phenomenal conference. They have, it was a little different than Lynchburg. It had that history of success, the Sweet 16 appearances, the championships, that kind of thing. And so getting to step in there and take a different role to say, okay, so now competing in one of these top tier conferences like this, being able to, compete on a national scale, national level, and see every kind of defense you could ever imagine. That was a lot of fun. Every kind of style of play you could ever imagine and played at that top tier. And so getting to experience that and play a much faster pace, a lot more transition, a lot more, high intensity, just a quicker game. And then it was stabilizing the wins there was really important. Stabilizing the leadership, stabilizing the culture. They had a bit of a roller coaster, and it was really important to try to bring some stability and keep up the top of the conference. And so we were able to do that. We made the playoffs 3 years in a row. I always would say before without the pandemic, but getting to make those playoffs 3 years in a row for the first time in 12 years, it was really exciting and just really getting to raise that, winning percentage. But more than anything, I got to be with 4 classes. I got to see a first year class all the way through graduation. And for me, that was incredible. It was an incredible experience as a coach, and I was glad to get to do that.
We are glad that you are part of the Lewis and Clark College family. Certainly now opportunity to compete for the Pioneers. We're eager, obviously, to have basketball back coming up this winter. I look forward to meeting you in person, but until then, Dorris, thank you so much for taking time to join us on lcpioneers.com Live.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I look forward to it too.
Absolutely. New head coach of Lewis and Clark women's basketball on lcpioneers.com live. That completes our show for the day. Great conversation with both Coach Dorris and Natalie Kowal in the first half of the show. Saw Lewis and Clark volleyball checking in. Welcome, Coach Dorris. Excited to have you. Can't say it any better ourselves. We are excited to see the fall kickoff in the early part of September. We'll have volleyball. We'll have women's soccer, football, cross country, full schedules already posted at lcpioneers.com live. And for those interested in basketball specifically, expecting to see the winter schedules up there in the very not so distant future, which will be exciting to see what can be coming up in 2021-22. It was a fun conversation in the sense, as you had Natalie describing the challenges from the student athlete perspective that they faced over the course of her junior year with Lewis and Clark women's tennis, and then you see the optimism and the excitement that Coach Dorris brings into the women's basketball program at Lewis and Clark. Just a fun kind of linear timeline, right, to talk about what has been, what could be. You heard Natalie excited about overseas study, which again is such a staple of the Lewis and Clark experience, right? So it's exciting to hear that our students and student athletes alike are going to have a chance to go around the globe again as soon as they are able to do so, and that could be as early as this upcoming fall. So we're very excited about that. You can find out more about all of the plans for Lewis and Clark by going to lclark.edu, and certainly we'll keep you updated on our website too, lcpioneers.com. A couple of notes for next week. We've started to get back into the flow of scheduling guests. We're planning to keep the show going all throughout the course of the summer months, except for a vacation here and there. And then once the fall hits, not only competition, but certainly keeping lcpioneers.com live going to keep these stories going. It's been a positive outcome of what would be otherwise just not something you ever want, a pandemic, right? But we had a chance to slow down, create an infrastructure for the show. Everyone's used now to having their iPhone propped up, like even Ann did in a coffee shop, and be able to talk to us through video chat. So we'll keep being able to do that because it keeps you connected with everybody, and we're very eager and thankful that we have that opportunity on our show at lcpioneers.com/live, which takes you to our Facebook Live page. So until we talk to you again on Tuesday next week, big thanks to Natalie and Ann for joining us on the show. I'm Ryan Goff. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having fun with us. We'll see you again soon for more of lcpioneers.com live, presented by PiosStream, Tuesday and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Until then, goodbye, everybody.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.